What's going on, everybody? Welcome to part 9 of the Django Web Development with Python tutorial. In this tutorial, what we're going to be talking about is foreign keys, basically, with Django. And so what is the purpose of foreign keys? The idea is that we can have different tables in our database that are related to each other. Now, why might we want to do this? Well, in the case, this is one case example, but this is definitely not an uncommon thing with all kinds of things, such as with attributes for users and so on. So consider a scenario with like Python programming.net where I've got 1,200 tutorials. I can't throw all 1,200 tutorials on the homepage. We've got to organize in some way. So then we're like, okay, well, we can organize by series. Okay, but I still have 100 series. Okay. We organize by category, like data analysis and games and web development and so on. Okay, so when we organize by category, we could just add another, attribute to our tutorial, which would in theory add another column to the table, and there input the category itself. But I'm not sure that's exactly the way we want to do it. More likely, it's the case that we'd want to make a separate model entirely, a separate database table entirely, and do things there rather than expanding our database to be just have this one singular table for all tutorials and like 15 columns when we come up with a bunch of extra attributes. So anyways, we're going to use foreign keys to relate our database tables. So, with that, let's get into it. So the first thing we need to do is go into our models. Apparently I don't have models open. I'm just going to close pretty much everything here. Let's open up models. We don't need urls.py either. Okay. And for now, what I'm going to do is we're just going to create a new model. And we're going to say class, and this will be tutorial category. And just like the other one, it will inherit for models.model. Now we're going to do tutorial category equals models.carfield. And here we're going to say max length equals 200. Now, up until this point, a couple things. One person asked, hey, why do you do like this tutorial underscore? Why not just category? Why not just title, content, published? Because I'm not doing that. As I'm writing it out and as I was going over that, I was like, oh, that's kind of dumb. I agree with you. Really, it should just be like you should have like tutorial dot, because like if you were to say tutorial dot title, that feels better. Okay, so go ahead, make that change. It's a better change. I approve of your change. I encourage you guys to change it and just change it, run a migrate, and you're good to go. Yeah. So anyways, I'm going to continue with that naming convention, but I do think that probably get rid of the underscore. So anyways, continuing along, category, the other thing I'm going to say is, so if this was the only thing we were going to do with category, right, yeah, we probably would just put another column here. That would make more sense. So when you only have one attribute, right, and that attribute doesn't have any other related attributes, it probably does make more sense. Just add it to this table. Here's the problem. Well, when we have a category, like when we go to the real Python programming.net, we see there's a few things here. There's an image, there's obviously the title, but then there's like a description, and then there's a URL. Like when we click on that, it takes us to a specific link, right? That's attributes that are associated with that category. So in reality, we're not adding one column, we're going to add like 3 columns. Okay, so we need to keep that into consideration, and really it would have been 4. It's just we're not going to deal with the imagery for now. Imagery will have to be way down the line because there's what is it? I think it's called media. There's like static and media, and Django for some reason likes to separate those two out. So I want to make sure I get that one right. Because normally what I would do, I would just throw everything in static, and that seems to be the way to go. But it almost looks like Django's more prepared for everyone to be using maybe their own custom image server or like a CDN or something. So anyway, I want to make sure I get that right before I throw that in a tutorial. So we'll skip the imagery aspect. Anyway, so we'll only have 3 attributes, but still, because you got the category, right? Then you've got category summary. And in this case, it's models.carfield. And actually, yeah, that is camel case, so car field. Or I suppose you'd call that title cased. Car field. And again, we'll go with a max length of 200. I think it's a good length. And then we will add category slug. That's for the URL. And again, models.carfield. And we will stick with a max length equals 200. Now, I think that's all I want to do. In my notes, I actually have it written out as default equals 1 here. If you ever change a model, chances are you're going to have to throw in a default. It's just going to require it of you. Like, it won't default to none or null. I want to say you can pass something to be null, but at least right now I don't think I need to pass a default because we're not adding the column. Everything's like fresh. So as you add a category, that's going to be there for us to input. So I don't think I need that, even though it's in my notes. Usually that bites me in the butt. Something hits me, but I can't think of a reason why I would need that. So I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, class meta, verbose name plural. So this is just for us when we see it, categories, in our admin page. So so that we don't have category as in like tutorial category YS. We're just going to say categories because Django wants to do that for whatever reason. And then finally, we'll give the dunder string method here, and we'll override that to be return self.tutorial category. Okay, so that's the category. Now we could take tutorial and give tutorial a foreign key that points to category, but a tutorial doesn't actually point to a category. It points to a tutorial series first. So actually what we could do is take the tutorial, point that to a series, and then that entire series points to a category, because the series is all under the same category, so no need to do to point both a tutorial and a both the tutorial and the tutorial series to a category. Okay, so now we're going to add another class. We're going to call this class tutorial series. Again, it inherits from models.model. And tutorial series is a models.car field. And again, max length will go with 200. Okay, and then so that's tutorial series. Now we're going to say tutorial category equals models.foreign key. Now this is a foreign key to what? Tutorial category. Again, I have a default written here. I'm gonna... So in this case, tutorial is going to point to tutorial series, and we're not going to actually have something assigned yet, and I bet it will get angry with us. So I am going to set a default to 1, just because we're adding this after the fact. So because we're doing this, oh, you know what? This actually, we probably won't need the default here. When we're going to need the default is when we add the foreign key to tutorial, because tutorials already exist, and we're going to add this new column, but for all the tutorials that already exist, they won't have a value for that column, and the migrate's going to be angry with us, so you could add a default here. I don't think a default's going to be required there. So much so, I'm just not going to put one. And let's see if we get away with it. Verbose name, whoops. Call this category. And then I'm going to chain, let's see, we'll say here on delete, This is, let me just write this out and then I'll explain this. Set default. So, oh. Okay, this one we will give a default equals 1. Okay, so lots to explain here. Mostly these, I guess this really. So on delete, in the past, on delete would default to cascade. And all that meant was if you deleted, let's say you delete a, let's say a tutorial category was deleted. Well, what would you want to do with all the associated objects, or vice versa, for example, right? In this case, I want to use the defaults rather than getting rid of, like, so if we delete a tutorial category, that category no longer exists. Should we delete all the tutorial series that are in that category? I don't think so. So we're just going to set to default, which will just be 1, right? So that makes the most sense. So that's what we're going to do. Naturally, we would want to do that. Can you imagine how many people got gotten by the default cascade? This way it forces you to look up what happens and think about what do I want to happen when I delete these things. I'd be pretty angry. Okay, so tutorial category. All right, so now what we're going to do is series, same thing before basically, series summary equals models dot car field. Almost sounds like Garfield. And then max length 200. Okay. I think I'm actually, we basically have to make, it's such a similar thing every time. This will be series, and then down here self dot tutorial series. Okay, so very similar structure to the above. And then finally, we need to point tutorial to tutorial series. So all we're going to do, we've got title, content, published. We're going to point here. Let me just come down here. Zoom in a little bit. Okay, we're going to say tutorial underscore series, not camel case, series, equals models dot foreign key. And that foreign key here is the tutorial series that it's a part of. The default will be 1. We'll specify the verbose name as well as the on delete. So verbose name equals series, series. And then on delete, we want to models dot set underscore default. I just want to see that with my eyeballs. Thank you, sir. All looks good to me. Now, a tutorial series, I'm going to do the same thing I do on pythonprogramming.net. We don't really need a unique URL for the tutorial series. In my opinion, the series is one of two things. Either when someone clicks on that tutorial series, it boops them into tutorial number 1, right? Or if you wanted to get really fancy, the last tutorial or the latest tutorial part that user left off on. But that would be dynamic by user, so otherwise it's just the first tutorial in the series, so that should be good enough. So we don't need a URL for that, but we do need a URL for the tutorial itself. So I'm going to add that in, and we're going to say tutorial underscore slug equals models dot, you guessed it, it's another car field. And we'll say max length equals 200. And here we definitely want to add a default because tutorials already exist. We only have a few of them, but they do exist. So we need to have some sort of default to throw in the ones that exist already. Okay, so what have we done? Well, we've made changes to the model, so we need to make migrations and we need to migrate. So is this full? Did I full screen this? What have I done? There we go. Good old F11 saves the day. Minimize that. Okay, let me just close that. Come over here. Come into my site. CMD. Python manage.py make migrations. We've made so many changes, and in fact, someone comment down below if I have failed a migration before, and I can't seem to find out what do you do when the migration doesn't work, because you like, what files do I need to modify to get it to skip a specific migration number? If anybody knows, comment below. I don't know what the heck you're watching for, but the few times I've hit errors, I've like tried. I've even purposely spawned errors just to see like, what do you do when you hit an error? And honestly, I don't know, because you can't get rid of the migration. There's got to be somewhere you could roll back, and like there's probably like a migration number that you're on. So delete the migration, roll back that number, you're probably fine. But I want to say I've tried that and it didn't work. So anyway, if you can, especially right now, it's super easy. Back up before you run. Really, you can make the migration, but mostly back up before you actually do the migrate. So you can see here, everything's looking fine so far. Python manage.py. Migrate. Ooh, looks good. I'm really surprised. I almost always write errors. So, ooh, all right. So now, we are coming down the home stretch, fellas and fellettes. Oh, admin. I was like, how did we lose that? Okay, so, all right. So the things that we've added have, really the homepage hasn't changed. Now we should be able to go in, even tutorial, that stuff hasn't been registered. So we actually shouldn't see any change, and we do not. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, so what we have to do is come over and bop into admin.py. And we need to import not only tutorial, but also tutorial series and tutorial category. So tutorial series, and tutorial category. Okay, so then we could come down here, and we will, I suppose. We can register. Let's just do it right up above here. So admin.site.regis. Can we type, please? Register, and we'll register tutorial series, and then we'll do admin.site.register tutorial category. Save that. Come over here. Just go back to the home page. Boom. Okay. So we've got categories and series. So we can click on category. There exists no category. We could click on this. We could say fundamentals, learn Python and stuff. Categories. Oh, okay, right. Python. I don't know. Oop, no. Let's not do slash either. Let's just say Python dash fundamentals. The dash. I'm not even getting into it, but we're not going to have the dash there, or slash. Anyway, save. Boom. Done. We have a category. And we could do the same thing with series, but I don't want to do that just yet. In fact, because probably more likely what you'd want to do is you'd come into tutorials, you'd want to add a tutorial, and then you would just simply want to say, this tutorial is a part of such and such series. And then in the series, you'd actually like to say, as you create a new series, you're going to say, hey, this series is part of such and such category, or something like that is more likely the way that you were going to go about doing something. But what we're going to do now, you got title, date. We also need so much effort. Let's do this. Let's copy this. We want a URL, and then we want the series. So URL series. So here we'll say URL, and then here we'll say series. And then this will be tutorial slug. And then this will be tutorial series. Cool. I think we're all set there. So we'll save that. Let's come back over here. Bloop. Let's click on just one of these tutorials. Slug is kind of silly. Okay, so then here we have a new URL, or a new section for series. Obviously, we don't have any series, so let's just add a series now by using this Lovely little plush. Isn't this awesome? So then you can add a series right here. So what is a series? Python Basics. Part of fundamentals. The category will be fundamentals. Learn to do things with Python. Okay, save, done, boom. Save, done, awesome. So now you might even add a series this way, right? Same thing as we just did, basically just no pop-up, right? So now everything is kind of related, but we don't need to have just like one giant table, right? And instead, a tutorial is related to your category by way of its relationship through series, right? And instead of having like 5 extra columns in one massive table, because categories and series is going to be, you know, small, very small tables. Series might be 100 tall, and then categories is going to be like, I don't know, 6 or 7, right? So it saves you a ton of space, and it just makes more sense to organize things that way. So anyway, just a super basic example of how we would do all that. Now, before we get to the next tutorial, I want to talk about, okay, now that we've created the model to organize things, how do we then organize our actual homepage to look that way, right? Because right now it's just showing us all of the tutorials. So how would we get the homepage to look more like this homepage, where you've got the main categories here, and then when you click on something, you see maybe some tutorial series, and then when you click on that, you get the actual tutorials themselves. How do we get ourselves to that point? So that's what we're going to do in the next tutorial. And before you get there, I don't want to waste anyone's time. What you need to do is add, you know, make sure there's, I don't know, 2 or 3 categories. Add, you know, 2 or 3, or add anywhere between 1 and 3 tutorial series per category, and add like 2 or 3 tutorials per series. And if you want, you can just like you can just like Google like, what is that, lorem ipsum stuff, this stuff, and copy and paste that in, give it some sort of title. Just make up the data, but just do that. That'll probably take like, I don't know, 5 minutes. And I just don't want to waste time doing that for 5 minutes on video. Just make sure you've got some way of organizing some things, so later in the next tutorials, when we start doing the visual aspect of this organization, you can still follow along. So anyways, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all your support and subscriptions, questions, comments, concerns, whatever. Feel free to leave them below. Otherwise, I will see you guys in another video.